This was a man who had forgotten how to swallow, who could no longer chew, who was at the end of his ability for his brain to keep his body functioning. I saw him there, Tom's eye opens, and I could see him looking at me. And all of a sudden, doing he's doing the moves, right? That we had done in class. And they were part of his body, right? And a man who couldn't swallow could dance lying down in bed, and then he died that night.
This is Doctor Talks. Welcome back to this episode of the Reverse Alzheimer's Summit. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Sandison, and I'm delighted to introduce you to Jill Simpson today. She is a seniors fitness and healthy aging specialist. She's a woman on a mission to change the way we think about aging. Jill has spent the past decade inspiring and empowering older adults to be their best possible selves every age, and then teaching them how to do it. Jill, it's so exciting to have you here. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So first, I want you to share with everyone, when we first met, I was so impressed by just how many people you have interfaced with around healthy exercise, safe, healthy exercise as they age. So can you just give everyone a little bit of a background into your experience?
Okay. Well, I was a dancer. I was a professional dancer. And after homeschooling my children, which took up 15 years of my life, I decided to go back to teaching. And I was asked to go back and teach seniors fitness of all things. And I thought, okay, that sounds good. So I went to do my certification. And I had just started teaching for the city, Parks and Rec Department. And my boss called me into her office and she was like, "We have had complaints about you." And I was like, right? Okay, what have I done? And she said, "Well, one lady has said that she felt things, we were moving to the beat of the music. And that's not how a fitness class went. That seemed too dancey for her. And then if this other person had complained I'd made them sweat during their exercise class. And she'd done this class for 5 years and she'd never sweated. And she wanted to make a formal complaint." And I thought, okay, well, I didn't know what to say. Anyhow, my boss went on to say that the Alzheimer's Society had contacted her. So she took care of this whole huge district of people. And they were asking her to recommend somebody to teach a pilot program that they had developed. It's called Minds in Motion. And she said, "You don't seem to be able to do anything inside the box. I think you would be perfect." So she said, "I've set up an interview, go do it." And I met my supervisor at the Alzheimer's Society, and we were like 10 minutes into the conversation, and she said, "Okay, you've got the job, you've got the right attitude, let's go." So it turned out that there was a very short timeline when the grant approval, all these things run on grants, right, had actually been the grant had actually been approved. So before the grant, they had spent all this time designing. There were two parts to this program. One was a physical exercise for an hour, and one was a cognitive social engagement where people sat together in a little room and did activities. And they had spent all this time on the social engagement. And nobody, because by that time they thought they weren't getting the grant, had put any thought into what they were going to do for a class specifically for people with dementia. So the class it was for people with dementia and a care partner, which was the best thing about it. And they both did the same class simultaneously in the same way, which is great. Anyhow, we got to day one, which was only like 5 days later after. And my supervisor said, "I just want you to know that at the Alzheimer's Society, I hate exercise. I loathe it. I've never been to an exercise class. I've never exercised, and you are 100% on your own. So just do whatever you do best." Right. So it was a terrible venue. It was in this basement of this old community center, and it felt like it got down to the morgue level at the hospital or something, right? No natural light. And I walked in, and there were 15 people with Alzheimer's and 15 care partners. and volunteers from the Alzheimer's Society trying to put them through this battery of tests where they were testing strength and cardiovascular capacity and all of this. And it was rather chaotic. And it was really obvious that these people, the people with Alzheimer's, they were not happy about being there. It was like going and getting tested. It's where you get tested, prodded, and poked, right? When you go to. So it was there was a lot of noise and struggle, and I don't want to do this, and going on. And I'm thinking, this is not a good beginning. And there was this one woman, Faye, and she had Tourette's also. So she was peppering the air constantly, swearing and cursing away, and everybody was getting super agitated. So finally, the test came on, or the testing was over. They gathered their statistics beforehand for the grant. And my boss looks at me and she says, "Well, it's all yours." And I was like, everything I had planned to do in this class just went out the window. Like I knew nothing was going to work that I had preconceived. So I just sort of did a wing it routine, and I had everybody pull their chairs into this giant circle. So we also and I also insisted that the staff from the Alzheimer's Society took the class too. So this was her first fitness class ever. So we pulled them into a big circle, and I dumped through my music on the iPod because what I had chosen was not what was going to work, and found something. And I just asked people, I said, there's no right and wrong way to do anything in this class. If you're moving, you're breathing, you're smiling, that's good enough for me. You don't have to do it the same way I do, whatever. So I turned on this music. I had them sit down, and I did really just simple little movements. And to my surprise, everybody was able to follow, right? Whether you had, actually, some of the people with Alzheimer's did far better following well, than my boss did actually. And so I thought, oh, that was interesting. So I upped the ante a bit and thought, okay, well, we'll make this a little more complicated. We'll move more parts of our body. And everybody was able to follow. So I upped it again and thought, okay, so this is not what I was expecting. But everybody was able to translate what I was doing into their body. Not in exactly the same way, but in no class does it work that way. So then I asked them to get up, and we put the chairs away. And I found this, so I remembered this moment distinctly. It was a 1957 tune called Ain't Got No Home. And I turned up the music really loud and just said, okay, whatever I do, you guys just follow, right? And just enjoy yourself. And I turned up the music, and 15 minutes into the class, Faye had quit swearing, everybody quit complaining, and all this anxiety and angst about being there was just totally gone. And people were smiling and they were laughing. And I was like, wow, what just happened? Right. So that it was a really pivotal moment in my life because I had taken care of my dad who had Lewy body. And I had never thought about dancing and moving with him. I had never crossed my mind. But I was like, oh, this is a way that I, as a dancer and a fitness instructor, have a way to communicate with. I can communicate with movement. And so it just grew from there. It was just an amazing moment. I thought, I have to understand more about this. And then I spent a decade studying the brain and how it works and why it doesn't work. So that's the story.
How exciting. And so since then, you have really dedicated your career to supporting people with neurodegenerative disease through movement. So give us a little sense of what the classes that you offer and the different type of people that you work with.
Right now, COVID changed everything. A lot of the programs that I was doing, I worked with wonderful residential home facility for people, I'm going to say from 20 to 50 that had cognitive issues at birth. So a lot of kids with Downs and cerebral palsy, a lot of them in wheelchairs, and we danced and we drummed and we performed. We would go around the community and perform. And I worked with people with that. I worked for the MS Society, the Parkinson's Society, I did the training with the National Ballet with the dancing with for dancing with Parkinson's. Yeah, I sort of worked with everybody, but the fitness for your aging brain, which is my big focus right now, is has two streams, and it started off that it came out of this grant and this pilot study. My about week 4, this lady came up to me and Camila said, "I want to tell you something privately." So we went off and she said, something strange is happening to her husband, Johnny, at home. He had early onset and had had it since his mid 50s, yeah, about 55, she said. She said, when we go home from class, we have this photo album and I always leave it on the table, right? And it's sitting on the kitchen table. And Johnny went home from class a couple of weeks ago and he opened the photo album and he started talking about the people in the album. And she said, he hasn't remembered or recognized a single person in that album for 2 years. And so she said, every week he would go home and they'd open the album and he'd recognize for a couple of days. Right. And then that would fade. I thought that was really interesting. Anyhow, the group of people in this Alzheimer's class got together and they wanted to know what was going to happen to them at the end of the pilot. Right. It was only 8 weeks. And so one lady stood up and said, so what are you going to do with us at the end of 8 weeks? You can't make us, that's not fair to make us feel better and then chuck us out. So, along with my boss, she encouraged me to set up a program where they could go. And this was 2014. And a lot of them were with me right until COVID shut us down in 2020.
Wow, that went on for quite a while. And then
Oh,
they
yeah.
really embraced Zoom and being able to provide fitness classes online. Is that right?
Well, what happened when COVID hit, I had a lot of people that I was working with live. I had never taught on Zoom before, never recorded. And it was, my gosh, what am I going to do? So I talked these companies and my suppliers into give me a super discount. And I made 150 little kits in bags. And I threw them in the trunk of a car. And I went to the parking lot because we weren't allowed to go in. And everybody would meet. People thought I was selling illegal hand sanitizer in the beginning because this was like the first 3 weeks of COVID lockdowns, right? Everybody had a kit, or those who couldn't do it, I made it out of household items. And like 2.5, 3 weeks after COVID hit, we were doing the classes online.
So I want to talk high level.
Mhm.
I want everybody to know what's in the kit, and then let's tell them why these kits are so
Why?
important. So what's in the kit?
Well, there is. There's a dryer ball, like, the little spiky hard kind that we use to help people train their balance. So it stimulates we stimulate the mechanoreceptor, the nerves in your hands and your feet. And then we work on balance. And then I teach them to do this at home. So a lot of people, especially people who might have had chemo, have trouble with feeling in their limbs. They said it was extremely helpful. Balance improved immensely. We work a lot on balance. We have balls that we bounce. We have cones are these funny little things that you can throw a ball and catch it in the air. We have big balls. We have weighted balls. They weigh like 2 or 3 pounds and they're about the size of your hand. And you feel like you're in Cirque du Soleil doing this, right? It's easy to catch, but there's this real sense of accomplishment because of the weight as it hits in your hand. We have bands, all different kinds of like TheraBands that we don't traditionally use in the same way. We have little rhythm instruments because when you move tiny, tiny little movements, will up your heart rate more than going for a big walk. You can up your heart rate sitting on the couch, shaking a little bottle of with rice in it. You can double your heart rate in a minute and you're sitting on the couch, right? And then my favorite item is the dollar store broomstick, just the handle out of the broom. Used to be $1. It's now up to $1.50. But the best piece of fitness equipment that we have in that kit. So, and we're using it in different ways all the time. If you use something in the same way, your brain has no challenge. So you've got to do everything has to be different. Every class has to be novel. Every class has to be a challenge.
I think when I first heard you say you were dropping these kits off, I was like, "Okay, what's in there? Socks or stretch bra?" But yeah, there are these props basically that you're using
Props.
the exercise and that is helping with what we call there's another interview here on the Reversing Alzheimer's Summit with Ryan Glatt from the Pacific Neuroscience Institute, and we're talking about dual task exercises and really diving into the science of why it's important to engage your brain at the same time that you're engaging physically. And it sounds like a lot of your exercises do just that. So tell us what a typical exercise routine with you would be like, or a class would be like with you. Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? How does it start? What do you do during it? How does it end? And why? Is there a particular way you've set up classes specifically for people with dementia?
The dementia, the ones specifically for dementia are not really particularly different, the concept, from those who are trying to prevent dementia. Because all the basic principles are the same. If you do the same thing over and over, your brain goes, I'm gonna sleep. Brains to me are like I remember my teenagers. They would do the least possible work around my house. My lawn would grow a foot and a half thick. They were innately lazy. And your brain is like that. It's conserving energy, right? So it's going to put it into something else only if it's forced to do it. So there is no typical class. Every day is absolutely different. Sometimes we're working with words as we work with our body, but it's always a combination of physical and cognitive. And you said dual task. So in a class, we are multitasking. We might be doing three or four different things. And most important, we are timing it to music. So the rhythm of the music upping the dopamine in your brain. And people, especially with dementia, can follow the music very well, and they have that sense in, that rhythm, and that music is such a stimulant. So whatever it is, we're always doing it to music, and I try to make it different, and I try to make it fun so that people want to be there, right?
There are so many great points you have there. I think a lot of people who aren't professionally working in the Alzheimer's space don't realize that music is and rhythm is one of the last things that a classic Alzheimer's patient will lose. And so at Marama, we have a resident who's quite progressed, but she still knows the words to Jingle Bells. So these really familiar rhythms, or especially if there's an emotional attachment, if it was, say, a song played at your wedding or your prom or something that really
Mm,
stood out to you, those will be ingrained and you'll have access to that, either the lyrics or at least a familiarity with the rhythm. And those memories of those moments might also come back. And then this idea that variety is the name of the game here, right? We want to
yeah.
mixing it up continually. And then you also encourage people to get involved. We talked about these props and even making the props.
Yeah. So if for people online, actually, can I just go back and tell you a little story?
Sure.
I had a gentleman in my Alzheimer's class, and he was in his mid 90s, and he was pretty progressed in terms of Alzheimer's, but he had all these other body health issues, right? As well. And his daughter, who came to the class with him every week, called me. He'd been away for a couple weeks, and she called me and she said, Dad's in hospice. And would it be possible if you could tell me what some of the music you played in the class was? Because he loved it. And he had been a singer, right? And we always played really boppy, rhythmic music. And I said, well, I will do better than that. We will bring the class to the hospice. So a bunch of us, I talked to everybody in the class, and a group of us took the music and our class to his room in the hospice. It was the loudest room in the whole hospice because we had the music cranked up. And Tom was there and he was lying in bed. And the minute I turned the music on, this was a man who had forgotten how to swallow, who could no longer chew, who was at the end of his ability for his brain to keep his body functioning. I was lying there and Tom's eye opens and I could see him looking at me. And all of a sudden doing these, he's doing the moves, right? That we had done in class. And he they were part of his body, right? And a man who couldn't swallow could dance lying down in bed, and then he died that night. But
Oh,
we had a lovely class. It was great.
what an incredible goodbye. And this idea that it's fun, right? That it's if it in his when he's like essentially going in the direction of taking his last breaths, that he would find the energy and capacity to join you. But part of that is because it's fun and it's enjoyable, right? So there's motivation to keep coming back. And although variety is really important, consistency is also important. Continuing to
Oh,
engage
absolutely.
is how we get the benefits, right? If you show up once, you're not going to get the benefit. And I share this with my patients. I say all the time, if doing some online cognitive challenge games, if you're not having fun, skip it and let's think about something else that you can do that will be fun. What motivates you? Is it the social piece? Is it looking good? Is it the capacity to be able to, do things around the house, remain independent? What is it that motivates you? Let's connect to that. And then let's also make it really fun so that you want to be there, because then it's more likely that you're going to continue to show up and get the benefit. So, what are the things that you do to make it fun?
I'm unabashedly silly. I am totally not self-conscious with what I do. And if I mess up, they love it. If we're tossing a ball and I miss, it is the highlight of their class. And that's one thing with the Alzheimer's group. They're working in partners or with care partners, right? So it doesn't have to be one-to-one. But watching your care partner struggling to do this too creates a lot of laughter and not I mean, the exercises aren't there's nothing to accomplish, and I make that really clear. There's no right and wrong way, right? What is important is the process. So, we're doing the same exercise, you get it right away, I don't get it. Well, my brain is working harder than yours because yours went, got it, slack off. Mine is still on high alert, right? And I think part of it too is people come out feeling the words they made up is brain buzz. And they say, I come out and I've got this sort of tingle. It feels like my brain's tingling. And my theory is back primitive man with drumming and music always is part of, you think back to a very tribal culture. There's this drumming, music, dance that connects people beyond themselves, right? So that is an important thing is to connect with others beyond yourself. But then people would say, oh, they go into a trance. Well, I think my interpretation is they didn't have the word neurotransmitters. And it's just this flood of cocktails, or this cocktail and flood of neurotransmitters and chemicals and proteins in your brain when you exercise, when you hear the music, all that stimulation there at once. And I think they were just having a brain buzz, but didn't have a good word for it.
That's great. How fun. Yeah, it sounds like people are often energized by this, right? I think a lot of
Mhm.
people imagine exercise, oh, I'm going to be so depleted and so tired after. But they're actually walking out feeling
Oh,
energized
yeah. Yeah.
and quite engaged. How fun. So I want people to understand, if they're doing exercise right now, what are a couple, two, three tips that you can give them to make their exercise basically better for their brain? I'm hearing drumming and music in here. Is that always part of your course, your classes, or what are some of the key things that somebody who's maybe not going to work with you would want to incorporate into their routine?
Well, that's the key thing is the benefit to the brain is the lead follow relationship. Lots and lots of research on why dance is so good for your brain as a neuroprotective activity. And not only are we using all parts of our body, but when you're dancing, you're not using them symmetrically. My left hand might be doing one thing while my right hand is doing something else, and my feet are doing something else. I'm coordinating it to the music. But where the real benefit comes in is picking up a cue from somebody else. Turning on the music, dancing around your living room is cardiovascular exercise. It is not cognitive exercise. Right. And that needs to be really clear. Where the benefit is the quick reaction time. So I'm doing this, you're sitting watching me, and you have to go, what is she doing with that hand? Which hand is she doing it with? Do I have one of those? There's mine, right? And what's she doing? She's doing that. So it's the follow and lead. So interestingly, in ballroom is really good because you've got one partner giving a cue and then you've got the other partner responding to the cue, and the cue is not verbal. So we're communicating in a different way. I used to teach ballroom. I thought it was an exercise in teaching people how to communicate in a way that didn't involve words. But tango is one of the best things for your brain of all ballroom dances. And I was like, why would that be? But in a waltz, it's a slow beat and you have one slow beat to give the cue and for the person to respond. In tango, it's fast, da-dum, dum, dum, right? That it's half the time or less that that person has to respond, right? So I touch you in a certain way, and you got to be in position one beat later. You got to be there because we're going that direction, right? So and in a fitness class, it's you following me. Right. Or I will have everybody in the class lead sometimes. Just make up anything. Tell me what you do in a day, household things. So they would say, oh, well, doing the dishes. So we'll turn that into a cardio exercise, right? And everybody will lead in the class. So it's not always me leading. We follow other people, but it's that relationship between giving a cue and translating that into your body.
How neat. Okay, so yeah, not everyone's going to have access to you, but if somebody did want to work with you, they did want to join a fitness class with you, how could they do that?
You could certainly my website would be a good, easy place to go. And it's just betterwithfitness.com.
Great.
Betterwithfitness.com. And if you're interested in fitness for your aging brain, so I teach you other things as well. So on Better with Fitness, there is an online seniors exercise program. Everything I do, whether it's fitness for your aging brain, the emphasis is that we exercise to keep our brain healthy enough so that it can keep our body functioning well for as long as possible. So I want people to be their best possible selves at 95 or 100. What do you have to do? Well, you got to start now, right? Don't wait till you're 94 to decide you want to be fit at 95. So that you can do. And then fitness for your aging brain. I have online YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. And now those are pre-recorded classes. People do them at their own time or groups will do them on their own schedule. And if you just Google fitness for your aging brain, all one word, aging is spelled Canadian way without an E, AGING, fitness for your aging brain. It'll pop up as a search and it'll take you to the YouTube channel and there's information and there'll be a couple of free classes that you can try at home. So that I sell by subscription. And we're going to do this pilot at Marama. I'm really excited for a live stream the dementia's class, right? And after we do the pilot and I get all this feedback and tweak it, then it will go live as well.
How exciting. How fun. It is just this internet age makes so much more accessible. And I really want to applaud you for embracing that because so many seniors are sometimes isolated by their circumstances, right? They don't have a driver's license anymore, or they're quite far. Maybe there's not something available for miles and miles around. And so having this come into the living room through the TV is just such a great way to make it more accessible. And I hear you really recommending that they do it with a care partner. So to have someone else there with them, are there any other kind of safety issues that come up? I think many people as they age worry about getting exercise because they're afraid they're going to get hurt. How do you prevent that from happening?
Well, that is hard when people are at a distance. I only recommend doing it with a care partner if one partner has Alzheimer's.
Okay.
dementia prevention stream that is on YouTube. Lots of people do it on their own. I always have notes. This is what you need for the class. And then I'm constantly reminding them, look at the floor, look around at the floor, make sure it's safe. Where's your dog? If you're going to bounce a ball, that dog is thinking you're going to play. You're playing and you're doing that for him. And I've had three people, not online, but in their regular life, have major breaks because they're out playing with the dog or somebody's dog wraps the leash around them or, you know, it it just happens. So that's safety. So we set it up in a safe way. I'm using like I will describe exactly what you need to do. And as we're using equipment, I am very, very, oh, I forgot. We always have drums and drumsticks too. Lovely and loud. It's good for it. And so I'm always watching. Now on an online class, I can see you on like on Zoom. I can see you, you can see me, and I can go, oh, wait a minute. Pre-recorded, people have to be cognizant, and I try to warn them during the class, hey, have you checked this yet?
Good, good. Yeah, it, it's such a catch-22, I think, for so many people as they age that they want to go in the direction of excuse me, exercise for Alzheimer's and exercise for a healthy brain. And yet there's this fear. And so making it feel safe and accessible, I think is a really great point and something that I'm glad that you're obviously considering. Is there anything else that people should consider while they're looking towards getting more exercise as they age?
Well, I think the most important thing is not to buy into our society's message about aging. So it's a constant bombardment telling us that about what we're not supposed to be able to do. So let me give you an example. My pet peeve drives me crazy. Wrote to the head of this company, a big pharmacy chain across Canada. Well, they just set up a set of 55 plus parking stalls, designated parking stalls right in front of the door. So you got the handicaps parking stalls. Those are very handy and useful. And then right equally distant is the 55 plus. Well, what's that message? That message is at 55, you should be concerned that you're unable to walk across a small parking lot. What we should be doing is we should be taking the seniors parking and sticking it at the far end of the parking lot, right? Because as you age, you need to do more. So society says, hey, kick back. You've earned your keep. 65, retire. All of these things just take life easy. But the reality is we have to work harder to keep our brain active. The world is closing in as soon as you retire, and we need to broaden. And then physically, we need to do more. My son, who's 27, can take a month off of the gym and go back and not notice it. My people my people in my classes take a week of Christmas off. Last year they took Christmas off. This year they said, could we just do one drop in between? Because I felt awful after Christmas. 10 days, well, it's a lot of eating too. But, you have to be consistent. You have to do more. And you have to do it above your capacity, stretching your capacity. Sitting in a chair in a seniors fitness class, sitting down and lifting a 1 pound weight is not going to help you age well, right? You're not going to increase your health span. You're not going to increase cardiovascular capacity. So my advice is when you're exercising, find a class that is real exercise. And so many are, I hate to use the term, but I would say dumbed down and patronizing. Right. Oh, you should sit in the chair while you exercise. No, I need to be able to stand up because I want to be able to stand up. Buy a bungalow. You'll never, and 3 weeks later, you can't do stairs. Right. All these messages about what we can't do. And I want people to focus on what they want to be at 95 and what all they can do, because there's no reason at 95 you can't do that.
I had this great patient yesterday. She's 87, and she said she always surprises everyone because she can sprint basically up and down the stairs. And she's like, "It's because I have stairs in my house. I go up
Yes.
and down all day long. My bedroom's upstairs and the kitchen is downstairs." And she's still cooking very traditional Mexican food for a big extended family. She's the matriarch and everyone comes to her house. And she's worked her whole life to kind of create this family and this home, this place where they can gather and have their parties. And she wants to keep it. And that was so motivating for her. And so it was just really sweet and amazing to see how hard she works at it. And I appreciate what you're saying is it's not as easy. Just doing the
Oh,
minimum
yeah.
is not going to allow us to maintain capacity, maintain ability as we age. We've got to push ourselves and really envision where do we want to be, who do we want to be, and what do we want to be able to do, and then put into motion, put into practice these exercises, these classes, whatever it is that's going to keep you fit and strong and able. Yeah.
It's really important to have what you said about having a reason. Going to a fitness class can be, I go there because I know it's good for me.
Right.
Wanting to be my best possible self at 95, wanting to be nobody I've ever asked, I always have people at first class, tell me what you look like at 95. What do you envision? What can you do? Nobody's ever said, "Oh, I'm in a care facility," right? And everybody's taking care of me. I'm unable to do anything. Everybody has this great vision. So when you're exercising, you should be tapping into that vision and having a purpose because you are that purpose and all those little incremental gains just reinforce what you can do as opposed to society reinforcing what you can't.
Right, right. This mindset piece is such a big component. Well, Jill, this has been fantastic. Really, really wonderful. I've learned so much from you, and I'm so excited to get the pilot program started at Marama and have you sharing your wisdom and all of this experience with our residents there, but also with everyone who's joined us here on the Reverse Alzheimer's Summit. Is there any other parting gift or words you want to share with our audience?
Can I share a little story?
Please.
Okay. This was probably my most unusual, atypical person in my class. So, very early on, right after the Alzheimer's pilot, and I was running this fitness for aging brain where people could come out of the pilot. So, it was advertised in the city little brochure or whatever as a class for people with Alzheimer's. And this lady walked into the class one day and she handed me this piece of paper. She says, "This is my registration." And it was. And she was 23 years old. And I thought, what brought you? So we talked. I said, "What brought you here?" And she said, "I have all the signs of Alzheimer's." And she had what was, I would say, medically induced dementia. That's my term. I don't know if there is such a term. But she had had intractable depression as a teenager. Then she'd come out of it and she'd gone to university. She'd done a degree. She'd gotten honors. She got depressed afterwards. And they'd given her electroshock therapy. And it had wiped her memory. She showed me her piece of paper. It was her degree. She said, "I have no idea what I got a degree in. I don't know anything." She couldn't read. She couldn't find the words. Like it would take her, a couple of minutes to tell me something in a short sentence. Anyhow, so she would just sort of, I was, she would get overwhelmed so fast in the class because we were busy. So I taught her just to close her eyes and go into herself, sit there. And when she was ready to come back, she could open her eyes or get up and join the circle. Then about week 6, she starts running out of the room. Like, her expression was like panic, right? I thought, wow, I don't know what I've done that's caused her this panic. So after the class, I said, "Lucy, what is it? How can I help you not be overwhelmed? Right? What can I do that'll make this work?" And she was like, "Oh, no, no, it's not that." She said, "As I'm moving, these movements, they're triggering memories. And I'm remembering things I would have thought I'd lost forever." And she said, "I ran out of the room and she ran, got to the cloakroom and got her book. And I sit in the cloakroom in the closet and I write them down before I forget them again. And then she asked me, I was doing a conference in Texas, a workshop for people with PTSD. And she had told me a lot about her life and an abusive life and that. And that's why she had gotten into this psychological state. She said, I want to make a video and I want to tell my story. So that's what we did. And she was just an amazing woman. But the fact that the movement had triggered these memories that she thought she'd lost forever.
Oh, how incredible. The power of
Yeah, a
movement.
story of hope.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jill. This is so exciting what you're doing and just really creating accessibility to well-informed exercise that's safe and again accessible is so key and fun that people want to show up for. Thank you so much for doing the work you're doing and your dedication to those who are struggling. It's really inspiring.
Well, the feeling is likewise. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Doctor Talks. We hope today's episode has enlightened and inspired you on your path to optimal health. Each day is a new opportunity to make choices that empower your well-being. For more insights and strategies, subscribe to our podcast and visit our website, www.drtalks.com. Stay connected, stay healthy, and join us next time on Doctor Talks. Real talks from real doctors on the issues that matter to you most.